Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Think Clinical podcast. My name is Hamza. It's been amazing over the last couple of weeks, looking at all the trends and everything that is happening. Always privileged to be here and talk to you about very, very important things in the space of healthcare entrepreneurship and what you need to know. Today we are going to be talking about a very important topic on what I call the now mindset, which is NOW mindset. How do you, within the healthcare space, transform your thinking and your innovative speed to what I call the now mindset, which means that when you have ideas, when you have items that come up as issues of importance, how are you able to use the speed and the now mindset to be able to stay ahead of the curve? How does the now mindset place you in the industry among your competitors when you adapt this? We'll also be talking through the 5 pillars of the now mindset, which means that you will be able to use these pillars as your benchmark to be able to make decisions now when they need to be and staying ahead. Now just imagine you are in an industry where you already anticipate the needs that are coming up. You're in an industry where any delays could cost people's lives. So you're in an industry where your idea, any delay in executing your idea could literally lead to life lost. Even though nobody expected that innovation to be in play then, can you imagine having a solution to a problem that hasn't even happened yet? Just because you anticipated that this is going to happen. This is the essence of this episode that we are going to have, because it's going to open us all up to how we can adopt the now mindset, how we can stay ahead of the market, how this becomes a survival skill in an industry like the healthcare industry, and not just the advantage it brings you in terms of the business. So you should have to be able to learn how to leverage urgency. You will learn how to leverage agility, and you will learn how to leverage precision to build the kind of healthcare business that you've always wanted to. So stay tuned, and we will walk into this very soon. So what I need you to really understand from all this is that this is not a game of checkers. Think about this as a game of chess, which means that you are predicting moves 3 steps ahead while acting decisively today. So you are anticipating what could happen 3 steps ahead and acting decisively in the present. Now, we can take a company like Predictive Health Analytics. And this is a startup that used AI to forecast the spike in diabetes cases. Now, by launching the personalized monitoring app 6 months ahead of competitors, they captured 30% of the market share in just the first quarter of their launch. What does that mean? They put themselves in a position where they did not just react to trends, they were very anticipatory in how they acted. They were able to envision, they were able to get AI to give them analytics on when to expect these spikes. They were able to take decisive decisions today to be able to stay ahead of competition and to be able to put something in place. So, if you want to start thinking about this now, and as we go through this podcast, you should keep in mind that speed here isn't just about recklessness. It's about informed velocity. Again, I'll say that again. Speed here isn't just recklessness. It's about informed velocity, which means that the lessons we learn from predictive health analytics puts us in a position where we have informed velocity. We are using data and agile frameworks to be able to move faster and move smarter. So you're not just moving fast because that's how you feel. You are moving fast because you have the information to be able to make those decisions in real time. Now, what are the 5 pillars that we are talking about? Now we are talking about anticipatory agility. That's the first pillar. The second pillar we'll talk about is rapid execution cycles. The third pillar we'll talk about is real-time data mastery. And the fourth pillar we'll talk about is proactive compliance. And the fifth pillar we'll talk about is dynamic resource fluidity. These are the 5 pillars we're going to be looking at today. So let's talk about the first one, which is anticipatory agility. Now, AI has come to be part of our lives and is becoming more and more important in the decisions we make daily. AI has played a very important role in predicting and forecasting trends and helping us to be able to do what I call scenario analysis that helps us to pivot in a time of crisis. AI is becoming that tool in our lives that is putting us or giving us that competitive advantage that we've always been looking for. Now, in 2020, when we had all the PPE shortages from manufacturers and all the supply chain issues that came with them, there were companies that were able to anticipate that this could happen because of all the policy decisions that needed to be made, and this could affect the supply chain system, and it could actually impact countries in not having the PPEs they needed. So the manufacturers, the companies that were able to pivot quickly into having or partnering local manufacturers and helping them identify how to produce these PPEs in quantities that were important for the citizens, were able to stay ahead of that curve, and they were able to stay and have that advantage when it actually hit and the demand became higher for local manufacturers. Again, the companies that were able to anticipate, and that is the now mindset, were able to make decisions in real time and at a time when they anticipated and thought 3 steps ahead, to be able to partner with local manufacturers, some of which never produced PPEs, they never did, but they were able to work closely with them, partner them, and help them to pivot and be able to produce these PPEs. It was a good business for these local manufacturers, but most importantly, it was a solution to the supply chain issues that were anticipated. So anticipatory agility is your ability to think 3 steps ahead in the midst of all the crises that you have, and make sure that you are able to make decisions now that are able to help you stay ahead of the curve. The second pillar that we'll be looking at is rapid execution, and that is the word now. It means that when you think about all the things that could happen, if you anticipate all these things that could happen, you should be able to make sure that you make a decision immediately. Act now. Urgency is what we are talking about now. Let's talk about the medtech firm that slashed approval time at the FDA by almost 40%. And they did this by what we call agile prototyping. Now they tested the MVPs that they had with clinicians in real time, and so they were able to do what we call they broke the project up into micro sprints which had clear KPIs, and so they were not looking at this as a marathon which was going to be slower and was going to take a lot of time for them to execute. They looked at this as a sprint, but they broke it down into what we call micro sprints, which means that they moved fast, but they moved in small chunks. They weren't moving fast and very large, in small chunks, using KPIs to analyze what was happening at every time in order to be able to bring the product to life. So that's what we call rapid execution cycle. So you're not running one full big cycle with the speed that needs to be done. You are breaking this speed into what we call micro sprints, not a marathon, which is slow. Micro sprints, which means that you are completing this in cycles and using KPIs to analyze what the feasibility is in the next cycle and the next and the next. So you're moving fast, but just in small broken chunks. The third one is real-time data mastery. What does that mean? Now, we have telemedicine centers which have been able to reduce patient wait times by as much as 2 minutes or even more. And all that they did was to analyze data streams in real time. Now, when they use things like wearables and they use blockchain secured electronic health records, they are able to really look at how the data coming out of these is impacting patient care. They're able to use that to evaluate whether or not whatever they have planned is actually executing the way it should. this is what we call real life data mastery. So we've talked about anticipatory agility as the first pillar of the now mindset. We've talked about the rapid execution cycles as the second pillar of the now mindset. Now the third one we talked about is real-time data mastery, which is the third pillar of the now mindset. Now when we talk about the fourth and the fifth pillars, which is in the spaces of proactive compliance, so you do realize that everything we're talking about is about you anticipating. It's about you being proactive. It's about you staying ahead of the curve. It's about you thinking about the future 3 or 4 steps ahead, but acting in the present to be able to influence that what you anticipate to happen in the future. So the fourth one, which is proactive compliance, it basically says that speed means nothing if regulators shut you down. So if you're moving too quickly and your regulators, like the FDA, says no, whatever you're moving with is not feasible, and they shut you down, then speed doesn't matter anyway. So you have to be proactive when it comes to your regulatory environment, when it comes to compliance. Now you need to embed compliance into the design process. Otherwise, you're going to be moving in these micro sprints, but one of the things that will shut you down quickly is because the regulatory environment is not supportive of the idea or whatever you're trying to achieve. The fifth one is dynamic resource fluidity, which means that when supply chains faltered, for instance, in healthcare companies, they reallocated R&D funds to localize production. So instead of being innovative, they were able to rechannel that funding into what they call localized production. Now that is the idea of dynamic resource fluidity, which means that you have to be ready to pivot and redirect your resources into areas that would keep, first of all, your company afloat, but most importantly, keep your profitability high, and also meet the requirements of what the situation demands at that time. You have to be in that position to offer that support, otherwise it's not going to work. So we talked about 5 pillars. Again, we talked about anticipatory agility. We talked about rapid execution cycle, where you do it in micro sprints. We talked about real-time data mastery, which involves you to pay a lot of attention to how the data is influencing, or how your decision is influencing the data, and whether or not it's feasible. We talked about real proactive compliance, which is making sure that as you conceptualize whatever the next 3 or 4 steps is going to look like, you are staying within the framework of compliance, making sure you don't get shut down before you even start. And the fifth one is dynamic resource fluidity. Now when we talk about issues of now mindset, we have to be very mindful that speed can't come at the cost of your team burnout. Again, make sure that in having that now mindset and keep going over and over again, it shouldn't come at the cost of your team burning out. Now, how do you fix this? First of all, automation. If you're able to automate mundane tasks, it means that your team doesn't have to spend the time, the energy, and the resources into doing those tasks. Let's talk about appointment confirmation. Let's talk about the appointment reminders. Let's talk about scheduling. If you can automate some of those procedures, then it frees up the people who are supposed to be responsible for those to pay attention to all these strategies that you are trying to take now in anticipation of the next 3 or 4 steps. The second one is to track resilience metrics, which means that you need to be making sure that you are doing well being checks. You need to be checking in with your team and making sure that they are still there with you, they are still present. It's not coming at the cost of their mental health, and they are still able to have the mental resilience to be able to help you execute whatever you anticipate will happen. The last one is to partner strategically, which means that you need to find the people or the resources that will be able to make it easier on your team, and especially make those transitions better. Ladies and gentlemen, it's important that you act quickly, but it's equally important that if in acting quickly, you need to start thinking about these 5 pillars. Make sure that anytime you're making such a decision, it doesn't come at the cost of your team or your whole team burning out and turning over, because it's of no value when the people who are supposed to help you execute these things are no longer there to help you execute. You have to pay attention to these people. You have to be ready to act. You have to start today. You have to audit one process this week. Look at your processes. Audit one process this week. Could you prototype this faster? Think about it. Automate compliance. Share your goals with people and the people that you work with, and make sure that you are able to act as quickly as possible. Again, this has been another episode of the Think Clinical podcast. If you have any questions, leave your comments down below, and remember to subscribe, like, and share. We will see you in our next episode.